Hey there, good people, and welcome back to the DNP podcast. I'm your host, Debo Agbade, and the NFL is well underway as week 2 is in the books. This episode will discuss which 2-0 teams after 2 weeks are true contenders, or whether their records are flattering them as pretenders. And on the flip side, which teams that are 1-1 or 0-2, they don't have to worry too much about their playoff chances, or are in short order cooked. And as I'll do every week, picks for 6 games on the weekend against the spread in our Pick 6. This pod is available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, so follow on those platforms and give an honest rating. Like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube so you can stay up to date with each upload. Okay, so in this first part of the episode, we'll go through the 2-0 teams and label them as contenders or pretenders. Contender meaning whether I see them being in the playoff race later on in the year, and pretender being a team that I believe will have a losing record when it's all said and done and won't be in the race for the playoffs when we get to crunch time. I'll go into detail with a couple of the teams and give my thoughts on why I've grouped them where I have. So showing now should be the table showing where I've labelled each of the 10 2-0 teams after week 2. We'll see the pretenders. I've got the Buffalo Bills. I think that's pretty fair based on what they've shown the first 2 games and that comeback against the Ravens. We thought that preseason, and they've shown that they are going to be thereabouts. The Chargers have obviously been really impressive. They've beat the Chiefs. They completely handled the Raiders on Monday night, for any of those night owls out there who actually saw that live. But that was a very impressive defensive performance, in Justin Herbert again showing up for the Chargers. So they're 2-0 and they're a contender. The Los Angeles Rams again. So Los Angeles is definitely the home of 2 teams that are very impressive so far this season. Getting that win against the Texans when having to grind that one out, and then also being able to beat the Titans when it looked a bit shaky for a bit there, but then they completely handled business. The Eagles, obviously the reigning Super Bowl champions, who were able to defeat the Chiefs again in Arrowhead, and then being able to come away with the win Monday night. The offense still has feels like there's a lot more to be desired there, but when you're getting the wins there, you can definitely say the Eagles are going to be a team that's going to be thereabouts. Tampa Bay Buccaneers again grinding out another win Monday night when it looked a bit daunting, but Baker with that last game-winning drive again, weeks 1 and 2, showing to be one of the high-level quarterbacks in the game right now. I definitely think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a team that when we're looking at the end of the year, they'll be thereabouts, maybe even for division championship, one of the top 3 seeds in the NFC. They're definitely showing that they are in both sides of the ball a team to be contended with. Go into detail with the Packers, go into detail with the Colts, and the San Francisco 49ers, which and this is a bit more of a tentative one, but you can't feels like based on the injury luck they've had, and it's like, okay, will they be healthier going into the year? But it felt a bit harsh to say, based on injuries that haven't happened yet, they won't be in the playoff race. They still got McCaffrey. They'll get killed back. They'll get they'll get players back, Ayuk back, and that sort of the like. So we'll see whether they'll still be in contention as the year goes on, but as currently situated, they are going to be a team there. But if they get injuries, which is looking like that could easily be the case based on years past, then it'll be a tough one to keep them in the playoff race. And they've got 2 pretenders there. I mean, it's still early stages, so in terms of playoff races, these are the teams: the Cardinals and the Bengals, which it's hard to see them, even despite getting the 2 wins, based on the circumstances of those 2 wins now, that they'll still be thereabouts come the end of the year. I guess I'll probably start with the Bengals now, because they have the biggest news story of the first 2 weeks of the season, you'd argue, based on Joe Burrow being out for 3 months due to turf toe. That's just that's just an absolute season killer for them, because when you're looking at the most important position on the field, it is the quarterback position. When you have someone of that elite tier like Joe Burrow, if he's not there, then you just look at it as like, okay, damn, the drop off from Burrow to Browning in terms of having to game plan for a team, or even being able to get that ball down to field to your Chases and to your Higgins and not turning the ball over, which is what has been Joe Burrow's probably real in terms of interceptions. He's been keeping that number to a minimum, and when Browning came in on Sunday, obviously they were still able to get the win, but he turned the ball over 3 times, and it's like, yeah, it's very tough when you're probably planning for a season and you have the quarterback in mind, and when he goes out, it's like, well, what do we do now? So you've seen that they've signed Mike White and Sean Clifford to the practice squad as the backups. It's like, okay, now, yeah, we're really on dire straits here for the Bengals. And it's again the offensive line that continues to be ranking low in terms of pass protection rate and winning those reps. And it just seemed like in that game against the Jaguars that, oh, this sort of thing was coming, because he kept being put under the firing line, kept being put under pressure. And yeah, obviously it turns out to now that Burrow's out for 3 months with a turf toe injury again, because obviously Purdy had his own turf toe that's keeping him out for a couple of weeks, but this seems to be the bad end, or the, on the scale of turf toe, badness. Burrow seems to have got the short end of the stick with that regard. And it does beg the question for the Cincinnati Bengals of whether Burrow can, take that extra step, in terms of winning the Super Bowl, because obviously they've been there in the 2021 season, but can they actually win it when you consider the competition they've got in the AFC with the Chiefs? I guess obviously not this season because 0-2, but they'll always be there and thereabouts with Mahomes, with the Ravens with Lamar, and having an offense that was potent again, and that's obviously the Ron Mars in their division. The Bills, you've got other elite quarterbacks in your own conference, let alone your own division, right? And when you're working from behind in terms of having a poor O-line, having a defense that isn't able to stop people when it counts, it just seems like, is it going to happen for Burrow at the Bengals in his career in total? Because if you even add the fact that he's getting injured now, so even the chances where you say, oh, the Chiefs are arguably out of the picture now because they're 0-2. This is the season where we can, okay, let's go for the juggler and let's, make our chance at going for the AFC crown. And even despite, they've gone into Buffalo and gotten the win in the playoffs, so you'd hope that, okay, this is when we can now kick on, and Burrow's injured now and he's out for 3 months, and now you're saying, oh snap, this was a chance we could have had, and now this season's arguably done, and in my opinion, it is done. So it is just an unfortunate situation for the Cincinnati Bengals and for Joe Burrow in particular, because it's not like the Bengals are ever going to move on from him, because when he comes back, he can, well, in terms of if he comes back for next season and he stays fit, he's one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league. So and even if he forces the issue, it's hard to see as a world where he's playing for another team, which in terms of winning Super Bowl could be what needs to happen for him to get over that hump. So Bengals are pretenders in my opinion in terms of the 2-0 teams, because when they finally started the season well, but when your main star quarterback is out of the picture for the majority of the season, 12 to 14 weeks, and an 18-week season, it's tough to see them stay in that hunt for the playoff spot. In terms of contenders, I have the Green Bay Packers. I'm just gonna say this now, as we sit here, they are the favourites in the NFC. When you look at the opponents they've been able to defeat in the first 2 weeks, it's the Detroit Lions, who maybe they never left. Maybe it was just a really good performance from the Packers in week 1, because the Lions responded and put 52 on the Chicago Bears, and they look like the old Lions of the past 2 years, where when they get the lead, they go for the juggler and they hit you hard. So being able to put that performance up makes it look like, okay, maybe the Packers are just really that good. And then the Commanders as well. getting the win in week 1, but having to go to Lambeau on that Thursday night and just not looking very close in terms of keeping distance with Green Bay. So it's what happens when you add a difference maker on the defense in terms of Micah Parsons, because it just puts the outlook of a whole team and a whole franchise in a different light. Because preseason I didn't have the Packers making the playoffs because I didn't think they had that sort of elite top level player in comparison to what the Vikings and the Lions had in terms of the skill groups or the groups on defense, in terms of that at least the Lions had Aiden Hutchinson, the Vikings had an elite defense in general, and obviously you have Justin Jefferson on the offensive side of the ball, and the Lions with Monroe. It just seems like the Packers don't really have that sort of linchpin as a whole team that can just wreck a game or on the offense and defensive side in terms of making that big game breaking play. And they have that now in Micah Parsons, which makes Rashawn Gary's life easier, which makes Lucas Van Ness' life easier in terms of the pass rush, and someone that can just open things up in general. And even on the offensive side now, so you have Matt LaFleur, who continues to push the envelope, and Jordan Love doesn't have to put too much on his back, because you've got a defense now that you can rely on and sit back on and say, okay, at least if I turn the ball over, or if I do this and that, which, to be fair to him, he hasn't so far this season. If he can look to his defense and say, okay, they've got my back, and I can sling that rock and do it really well, then yeah, we're gonna be we're gonna be in NFC Championship or even Super Bowl talks now. So looking at the Packers in this first 2 weeks, I think they're the best looking team in the NFC, and the Eagles have someone to actually look to and say, okay, this isn't great, because if the weeks 1 and 2 we've seen that at Lambeau Field that the Packers have been able to dominate really good competition. If the Packers are able to get home field and get the 1 seed and have the road go through Lambeau, then yeah, it's going to be difficult to see a team roll into Lambeau and get the win in the playoffs when it's really cold and really nasty for teams on the road. So I think, the Packers are a prime example of a Super Bowl contender, let alone a playoff contender. Another contender I'll look at is the Indianapolis Colts, because boy, is Daniel Jones look like a new man in these first 2 weeks. Boy, like that is a surprise if I ever see it, because he's been put arguably in front of his first real offensive line in his career, and he's been able to get the ball where it needs to go. Because last week, boy, did the Broncos, as they usually do, send the heat for him, and he managed it, brilliantly. In all honesty, getting the ball out to Taylor, to Warren, Pittman Jr., to Pierce, and it's like, wow, okay, so this is what it looks like with Shane Steichen as a distributor at the quarterback position, which Anthony Richardson unfortunately hasn't been able to really show in the early parts of his career. And you're now looking at it and saying, can Daniel Jones be the future for this team? Obviously, it's still early doors in the year, but in the AFC South, where the Texans are now 0-2, where the Titans are 0-2, and you'd argue whether they're being the playoff hunt, or it looks like the Jaguars are going to be a team that is very much going to be in that playoff run, and maybe the Colts and the Jaguars are going to be the ones fighting for the AFC South title, and you're keeping the Texans in the back burner. So the way they've looked, like, obviously the Dolphins are a bad team who they beat in week 1, but what a good team's meant to do against bad teams. They're meant to dominate bad teams, and that's what the Colts did. And then being able to get the win against the Broncos, which you'd argue whether leverage as the penalty that was given against the Broncos for the 60-yard. Should that be a rule? Questionable. Probably not. But the fact is, given the laws of the game, that was a penalty, which gives the Colts another chance to win the game. And honestly, the offense has been able to perform really well. And yeah, the defense has players too. Obviously, Cam Barnum getting another turnover and doing the whole celebration thing. So yeah, man, the Colts the Colts look really good, and the Colts are definitely going to be a team that, as a 4 seed in the AFC playoffs, as the AFC South champion, is very much on the cards. So very much impressed with how the Colts have looked this season. Speaking of cards, my last pretender that I'll go into detail for is the Arizona Cardinals, because they beat the Saints and the Panthers, and even in those wins, they didn't exactly look too convincing. Especially that Panthers game, because going into that fourth quarter, they're up 27-9, and all of a sudden it's 27-22, and the Panthers have a chance to win the game over recovering an onside kick. And even in that drive where they're able to keep the Panthers at bay and come away with the win, the penalties to extend drives and all that sort of stuff, like, it's just, there's nothing about this Cardinals team that I currently look at and say, yeah, like, Kyle is going to be able to carry this team forward, or they're going to get the ball to Marvin Harrison Jr. enough. And other than Trey McBride, who himself has been able to perform for them, it's like, yeah, this is a team that, in the NFC West especially, when you're looking at the Los Angeles Rams, the Niners if they stay healthy, or the Niners in general, because Kyle Shanahan is never going to, or is rarely going to keep a team, non-competitive, that they can not get the wins against the Cardinals, right? And then the Seahawks, especially going into Heinz Field or Acrisure Stadium, whatever you want to call it, but going against the Steelers and getting the win and being the, steely team, for lack of a better word, going into Pittsburgh and getting the dub, it's just, I just, like, if I closed my eyes and looked at the end of the year, or looked towards the end of the year and say, can I see the Cardinals, the banner or the T-shirts of NFC West champions? No, I don't. I don't even see them making the playoffs. And if the schedule makers did them a real favor, giving them the Saints and the Panthers as week 1 and 2 opponents. So in my personal opinion, the Cardinals aren't really going to be a factor when it comes to the playoff race going into the end of the year. Now, let's look at the other 22 teams that have started either 1-1 or 0-2. Won't go into great detail with everyone, but here's my category of teams that should worry about their playoff hopes and those that should have nothing to worry about. The 4 teams that I will go into detail on aren't in this graphic, so I'll obviously go into detail with them after this. So in the worry category, we have the Jets. I mean, yeah, that's the week 2 loss to the Bills. Oof, that was a pounding that did not expect. The Dolphins got into them last week, another loss, and Tua usually beats the Patriots. So the fact that he lost to the Patriots, the signs are getting worse. So Thursday night is against the Bills as well. So Michael McDaniel has a lot to answer for if they get another pound in there on Thursday night. The Raiders, just think the offensive weaponry isn't as great to maintain a playoff charge in that AFC West division. Cleveland Browns, that's pretty standard. Quarterback situation is atrocious, and it's another offense that doesn't have much to go on. The Titans, I think Cam Ward's looked good, to be fair, but yeah, it just seems like this season is probably a bit too soon for a playoff race. The Cowboys, I mean, if you're giving up, 37 to the Giants, then that defense needs a lot of work. So you know what it needs? A Micah Parsons, but I guess obviously they don't have that. The Vikings, boy oh boy, that was a tough Sunday nighter. I think that's a team that, obviously with JJ going out for a couple of weeks now, it's like, can Carson Wentz step in and keep him afloat? We'll see about that. Carolina Panthers, yep, that's pretty obvious. Another team that has a defense that's just not really, and an offense too, like questions over Bryce, whether he can, whether he's a bust or not, in all honesty. And the Saints are the Saints, that's just an EU in all ways. The Falcons is in the no worry category. That's but if they can maintain similar levels in terms of, again, 6 sacks, in a game against the Vikings, then that is a defense that can keep an offense that may not be humming week in week out. The Ravens, that's an obvious one. They're gonna be thereabouts. I mean, 40 points in 2 games. Come on now, that's and Lamar Jackson. Yep, the Ravens are gonna be have nothing to worry about. The Chiefs, despite being 0-2, I mean, Chargers and Eagles are two good teams. They'll get Rice back at some point. Worthy's not too far away, and then it's the Giants this weekend, so they'll get that win back. Broncos, tough loss there, but they're a leverage penalty away from being 2-0, so they'll be thereabouts at the end. The Patriots, good win against the Dolphins. They'll take that going into Pittsburgh this week, so they'll be in a playoff race for sure. We're looking for that 7th seed at least. The Texans, despite being 0-2, I mean, they lost to the Rams and the Bucks, 2-0 teams. Their defense has been able to keep them afloat in those games, and when you got Will Anderson and Daniel Hunter, they'll be just fine. The Commanders again faced a really good Packers team. Jay Daniels is still there. They'll be thereabouts. Seahawks as well. Defense, pardon. The defense will be there to keep them in those games. So those are teams that have nothing to worry about. So in terms of going into detail, I'll start off with a team that does have something to worry about, and that's the Pittsburgh Steelers. I just think in terms of quarterback play, Aaron Rodgers he's not a difference maker anymore. He can't have a revenge game against the Jets every week. Like, obviously they have Packers on the schedule, but the Packers are a really good team themselves, so it's not that easy to just go into revenge mode and say, I'm happy being everyone associated with the Jets. Well, the Jets aren't there every week, so you can't put up 34 points every week. And with a defense now that is giving up 30 points against they gave up 30 points against the Seahawks last week, obviously with that special teams play. But the 30 points given up for the Steelers in the first 2 weeks of the season, that's just very un-Steelers-like. And if that's going to be a trend that continues, the offense with Arthur Smith, who isn't exactly someone who lights up a scoreboard with his play calling, he likes to ground teams out. And if your third round rookie Caleb Johnson is going to be someone you feel is already out of the picture now, Jalen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell aren't going to supply Aaron Rodgers, who needs a run game with sufficient supports to be able to have an offense that is capable of keeping you within the mix in the playoffs. So obviously they've got the Patriots this week. That's a game that's going to be interesting for both sides, both at 1-on-1, whether they can stamp their claim as a team that is in this playoff mix. But I didn't really believe much in the Steelers going into this season, and I haven't really had much reason to differ from that opinion. So the Steelers are definitely a team that I feel has to look within and see whether there's things that need changing for the future. I guess obviously Aaron Rodgers is just a 1-year deal, a 1-year thing, so I doubt that this is something that they'll worry about too much for the future. But for this year, I just don't think the whole Aaron Rodgers thing is going to work. The Detroit Lions, next up, I'd say they have nothing to worry about. That game against the Bears this weekend was just a sign that the Lions are here. They didn't just completely wither and because they lost their coordinators and wither and die and that sort of stuff. Like, they're still going to be a team that is competing for the NFC North crown and will hopefully, in their eyes, give the Packers a run for their money, because the complement of players is still there. It's still Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra, Jameson Williams is looking to has taken a step up in eyes. Isaac Tesla is making really impressive catches and can easily carve a rollout for himself in the offense. David Montgomery, Jared Goff at the quarterback position, who's able to distribute. And an O-line that, their issue was the fact that obviously Ragnow left or got retired. Zeitler went to the Titans, so they've invested in terms of the draft and getting players into that interior O-line. So that's just one that the more reps they get in together, in-game live reps, then they'll be able to get better as the season goes on. So I think the Lions are definitely a team that won't just wither and falter and be, oh no, they're gonna be a 7-win team now, 6 wins, because the Packers tore them a new one in that week 1 game, they're still going to be in the 9-10 win range, at least, as a floor. So the Lions have nothing to worry about in that case. And yeah, Monday night, this week 3, going into Baltimore. Whoa, can't wait for that one. That's going to be a really good. It's going to be a really good game between the team that's put up 50 last week and the Ravens who put up 40 in their opening 2 games. That's going to be one to keep an eye on in week 3. Chicago Bears. I think they're a team that has a bit of worries, something to worry about for this season. I just think the way Caleb Williams plays and his style of play in terms of being Superman, basically, evading the pocket and scrambling and, playground, schoolyard, football type of stuff, where Ben Johnson's very structured. I saw something over the past week, can't remember where I saw it or who even tweeted it. This is just, not my quote, but Ben Johnson's someone who writes scripts and Caleb's someone who does improv. So I feel like Caleb needs to get more with his script writer in this case and look for stay within the scheme and look for the read and hit it and then second read. So someone who just needs to be more composed in the pocket, because it seems like he almost has a first look to scramble and he's kind of fighting his own demons himself to stay within what Ben Johnson writes up. So that will take time. So it will. I don't think it'll be a bit harsh to say that it's something that Caleb can't do, because he's managed to get himself up to being a first overall pick in an NFL draft. So he'll definitely manage in terms of getting himself to follow the script, but it's just not sure if that can happen in time for this season for them to make a playoff run in this season. So I just think the Chicago Bears, especially in the NFC North with the Packers and the Lions above them, and heck, maybe, and the Vikings getting the win over them in week 1 actually, so even then it's like, okay, you've got yourself behind the 8 ball in terms of making a playoff hunt for this season. So yeah, I think the Bears, in terms of making a playoff hunt, it's just something to worry about in terms of whether Caleb can get himself situated in the Ben Johnson offense soon enough for them to make that sort of run for this season. And then the last team, in terms of the 1-on-1s and the 0-2s for this section of the episode, the Jaguars, in terms of having nothing to worry about, because I think that AFC South division isn't one where you're going to be behind the 8 ball too far. Like, they're 1-on-1 now. They're obviously got their second in division because the Titans and the Texans started off 0-2, so they're one behind the Colts. They've got the Texans this week, so that's one that's really big in terms of stamping a marker and saying, okay, we're here now. We're dealing with those people in Indianapolis, not you in Houston. So I think it's definitely one where you have to look at Brian Thomas Jr. to get humming a bit more, and I do believe that's going to happen. You're going to have Travis Etienne, who seems back to his best football, and you have Bashal Tutin as a rookie behind him, who can be a bit more involved in the passing game as well. It just seems like, okay, the way he did Bucky Irving and Rashad White in Tampa Bay, that Liam Cohen can get into Jacksonville and have Etienne and Tutin humming in a similar fashion. So I definitely think the Jaguars are going to have, at least on the offensive side of the ball, you have Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter, and Trevor looking better than he did last year. So in the quarterback position, which is the most important in the sport, you have someone who has the talent and has the capability to get the ball where it needs to be. And on the defensive side, you've got Trayvon Walker, who's now looking like, the first overall pick that was obviously question marks why they took him over Aiden Hutchinson, but you can see in terms of the physical specimen that he is, that he can wreck a game. And Josh Hines-Allen as well on that defensive side of the ball. So yeah, I just think the Jacksonville Jaguars, I still have them winning the AFC South, and as I said, there's nothing that they've shown this season that makes you think, the Jaguars are gonna fall behind and wither, because that's a team that still has game records on that defense side of the ball and a coach coming over from Tampa Bay that's able to scheme things in a way that keeps the Jaguars ahead in their matchups. Last week, put out the story that we were 4-2, or actually 3-3. Turns out the Jaguars line was plus 3.5, so they lost by 4. So in fact, the Jaguars one didn't come in. The Panthers, little backdoor cover, love that from them, plus 6.5 against the Cardinals. That looks very ropey throughout that game, but in the fourth quarter, Bryce was able to pull through and get me the win there. Give me the win there. Bills at Jets, boy, Jets plus 6.5. That looks like a rotter now, because that was 30-10. Boy, oh boy, that was a rotter for me. That was poor. Rams minus 5.5. Yep, nice easy win for them there. Niners minus 4.5 at the Saints. Again, very nice. Broncos, tough one there, but that was minus 1.5 anyway. So even if the Colts kicker missed and that was the end of that, then they had to win by more than one. So tough one there. 3-3 means my total for the year is 5-6. So we need to get in the win column. Need to get a winning record above 500. That's where you could say we're winning money in this case, even though no actual money is coming out of my pocket. But nonetheless, this week I feel good. Feel good about this pick 6. Feel good about this weekend slate. So, mate, 6-0 week incoming. Just you watch. So, first pick, Steelers at Patriots. Patriots plus 1.5. This in Gillette Stadium. Is that Foxborough? And the Patriots, the underdogs. Yeah, I'll take that all day. I think they're going to come out on the way of the win. I think you look at what they're able to do on offense. I think Drake May is able to spray that ball around. I think he's coming up. He's getting better. And I don't think the Steelers team that has given up 30 points in their past 2 games is exactly the one that's going to test Drake May in the way that is going to get them the win in this game. So yeah, give me the Patriots plus 1.5. Looking for Trevor Henderson to do a lot better this week. Hopefully no holding penalties that take some snaps away from you, but even then you've got Stephon Diggs, you got Keyshawn Bouye looking better, Pop Douglas. This is a Patriots maintaining the home field win, and the plus 1.5, mate, they're just gonna win outright in my opinion. Second one, Packers minus 7.5 at the Browns. This Packers team that's got a lot of steam coming, a lot of good momentum their way. And if you're telling me you're giving me the Packers that are coming off a mini bye, playing last Thursday night, a little 10-day rest, going in to play the Browns in Cleveland, not like the weather's going to intimidate the Packers at all. They come from Green Bay. It's not it's not sunshine and rainbows in Green Bay. This is a team that's going to be bringing Mike Parson with an extra week in the system, an extra week who's been able to game wreck before. He's going to game wreck now against the Cleveland Browns. That defense is not going to give Joe Flacco a sniff to move any sort of ball down the field, down the ball. So I think even if the Packers offense or even the Packers in general are able to get to 20, that's my 7.5 right there. So that's a pretty comfortable Packers minus 7.5 that I am going to hammer home and say that one's coming in. Number 3, Cardinals at Niners. 2-0 teams. Niners at home minus 1.5. I'll take that every day of the week. Cardinals haven't exactly, as I said before, looked impressive against the Panthers and the Saints. And if I think they're even going against the Mac Jones-led 49ers team, still Fred Warner and Nick Bosa, as we sit here, that are fit and raring to go. So the 49ers, that's an easy one. They're going to maintain home field again against a divisional opponent. Very big win to get for them. And I think that's a win for the Niners there. That's a minus 1.5 that I will happily take to the bank. Fourth one, Rams at Eagles. Rams plus 3.5. Yeah, this is a Rams team that can travel. This is a Rams team that kept it close against the Eagles last year. I think they're probably even looking for a bit of revenge, considering in the last 11 games saw this stat where the Rams are 9-0, but they're 0-2 against the Eagles. So basically, they're 9-0 against every other team not named the Eagles, and the Eagles are the ones that are, just have, a bit of a bogey team for them, even though the Eagles are a good team anyway. But I think, what would even the term be? But they know how to get at them, and the Rams, could say that this is a game that they've circled on the calendar and said this is one we have to get in. At plus 3.5, they could lose by a field goal and the bet still comes in. So I think the Rams are going to keep this one very close, very tight. Not like the Eagles' offense has been able to create a whole load, hasn't been able to get the ball to AJ Brown effectively enough, or the passing offense, and you can't just bank on Saquon doing everything. You're gonna have to get that ball out to AJ and Devontae Smith to be able to get what you want out of this game. So yeah, give me Rams plus 3.5. I feel really good about that one. Number 5, Raiders at Commanders. Commanders minus 3.5. Yep, again, I don't think the Raiders offense is able to create enough in terms of keeping up with Jaden Daniels, and I guess to be fair, this game does rely on Jaden Daniels being fit for it. But if Jaden Daniels is fit, I feel good in my minus 3.5 for the Commanders to be able to keep this one, keep the Raiders at arm's length and get the win in that scenario. And the 6th one, Buccaneers minus 6.5, home to the Jets. Yeah, especially we'll see how Justin Fields is in terms of getting in for this game, but the Buccaneers offense can fly. Like, you have Igbuka, you have Mike Evans, you have Bucky and Rashad White in the backfield, Baker Mayfield playing at almost an MVP level, if not an MVP level. So if the Jets and Tyrod Taylor, even Justin Fields, are able to keep this one within the touchdown, I'd be surprised. So I think the Buccaneers at home as well in Florida, they're able to make that one quite an easy win for them. Right, so that's this week's episode of the DNP podcast. Thanks for listening. Like and subscribe if you're watching on the YouTube. Give a 5-star rating on the Spotify, Apple Podcasts as well. Thanks for listening. We'll see you lot next week. Let's enjoy another week of football. Bye bye.